Welcome back to the channel. Today we're taking a look at the QSP Turtle Punk. What a name there, people. What a name. And when they asked me if I want to check this one out, at first I saw it was a Tonto and I was like, nope, don't want to see that one. But after further inspection, I noticed it's a drop point Tonto. So this blade shape is going to be a lot more versatile than just a traditional American Tonto blade. You even got some belly here. And like I said, this drops down. So if you want to use that tip, you can use this forward tip, or if you want to use that secondary tip, you can use that as well. And just like the last QSP that I reviewed, this one's also a full-size knife coming in at 8 inches long with a 3.5 inch Tonto blade, or like I said earlier, drop point Tonto blade of 14C 28N steel. Excellent budget steel. This one has a nice reflective, like a satin stone wash finish on it. Love it. That's a really, I like their stone wash. It's really nice. You got a nice little swedge up here to thin out that tip a little bit, but it's still robust enough. So if you need to do some poking, prodding, piercing, you could definitely do that. You have somewhat of a thumb ramp right here with some jimps that grip the thumb nicely, but they're not uncomfortable. Now, if you choke up, of course, they could have put a little patch right here, but I'm not really worried about my jimping on my pocket knives. Talk about the thumb studs later. And how did they do on the sharpening choil on this particular version? Once again, the heel of the blade is already flaring out and I haven't even sharpened it yet. That it's so frustrating. Especially my budget knives, I tend to sharpen them a good bit. So I'll either have to cut it in myself or just let it flare and possibly ruin my stones, making it harder and harder to sharpen. It's just a pain in the butt. So if enough people continue to talk about it, I think they'll make some changes, hopefully. This one also has a nice full flat grind, and this one comes down to around 17 thousandths of the thinnest portion in this area, and then transitioning into that Tonto area comes in at around 22,000. And my particular knife is sharpened at around 21 degrees per side. Let's see what this bad boy can do. Just like the last QSP that I tested, this one came incredibly sharp out of box as well. And I usually don't enjoy testing Tontos, but this one has a drop point Tonto, so it is a lot more versatile than, say, your regular American style Tonto. This one's slicing very well. Seems to have good edge geometry. I don't know how thick it is by that tip. I'll find that out whenever we do the actual review, but so far so good. You got pretty much straight edge up into the secondary tip, and it's going through material nicely. Now we're going to test the ergo. Start off with light pressure. It seems to be biting very well. It wants to bite fast, and then we're going to slowly increase the pressure more and more. Now I will say, when I got toward the end where I'm really bearing down, I could feel that bill on that clip, and I think it's because of how narrow it is in the back right there, because it's the same clip on the last QSP on the Ripley, but it's lower, and it was definitely stabbing me. Not terrible, but I could feel it. Now I want you to see how easy it's popping this sisal rope with just this Tonto area, and the Tonto edge portion is a little thicker than the full flat behind it, and it is doing really well. And we pretty much use that small, about 1 inch section of edge for the remainder of the test. So if it can if it can handle it, I'd say it did pretty darn good, because it's cutting a good bit of stuff. It makes this type of cutting very easy, because I'm basically just pushing down into the material, and I'm not having to exert a whole lot of force into the rope to be able to cut through it. So it's not always the case with Tontos, especially whenever they're not dropped down like that, because that edge is just sitting more upward, making it a lot more difficult. You almost have to come to a 90-degree angle to do this type of cut. But this one, they didn't seem to leave that small portion too thick, and I find it to be performing very nicely. It was comfortable in this pinch grip. I couldn't really feel that clip in this manner, But like I said earlier, I did feel it at the end of that wood shaving. So very good job. Like I said, I can't recall QSP that did not perform good for me. I mean, they usually do a good job with their edges, and it seems like they have a solid heat treat. Now, I don't know if they're, higher than anybody else, but it seems like they do a nice quality heat treat to their stuff, because I haven't had any of them just fall off prematurely or anything. And even though I'm not testing for edge retention, I am making sure that it doesn't get dull right away for some reason. That would usually indicate either a burnt edge or something wrong with the heat treat on the knife. No chipping, no rolling at this point. And I'm using at first I use the secondary point. You can also use that tip. You do have to come up a little bit higher, but as you can see, I'm still using that small edge from the Tanto edge with all this material, and it is performing very, very well. I didn't even think it'd be able to handle the denim the way it widens whenever you go to push down on it, but no problem whatsoever. Very impressed with how this one performed. I don't know which one performed better, but it did good. I thought this thing performed outstanding. Now let's look at the deployment and action of this knife. You have dual thumb studs and a very crisp break on that detent. As soon as you break that detent, this thing's coming out. I can't fail it at all. Let's see. I might be able to. Oh, nope. I think it's because you see how low that thumb stud is. You can't come at the thumb stud this way and push it like that, because it's gonna feel like this detent is ridiculously strong. So what you have to do is you got to kind of come at it at this angle and push, not really out that way, but more so you're pushing it out like this. And it doesn't even take much of a push. Put your thumb in there and you can kind of like push like that, and it's going to come popping out. So nice crisp detent as long as you're putting your thumb in the right spot. Like I said, if not, it's going to feel like it has a bone crushing detent, at least mine. Nice smooth action. It is riding on ceramic ball bearings with a ceramic detent ball, giving it that glassy smooth action. Now let's take a look at this very interesting looking handle. I'm guessing they call it the turtle punk because this scale looks like a turtle shell. You can't really see it on mine because of the pattern on this multi-layered G10. I have the black and white G10. You can feel that texture. Y'all might be able to see it. I can't. I can see the raised spots here and here, but I'm not really seeing it through my viewfinder, so hopefully y'all can. It feels nice. You have a Torx T8 for your pivot, and unfortunately they gave us T6 for everything else. You do have a tip-up deep carry reversible deep carry pocket clip sitting past the scale, so it's going to disappear in the pocket. And you also have a filler tab for the opposite side. We have flow-through construction with 2 hourglass standoffs, and you can see you have an open and closed stop pin there. You have heavy skeletonization on the top and bottom stainless steel liners to reduce that weight as much as possible, bringing the weight to 124.8 grams or 4.4 ounces. Not bad. Now let's take a look at that lockup. It looks like it's sitting at around 40% or so. Access to the lock bar is good. This comes down a little bit further. You got a little bit of texture there. I have no issues getting my thumb in there whatsoever. If I want to get the tip of my thumb or the fat of my thumb, I can easily do it. Very, very nice lockup. I have no play up or down, left or right. And nice and tight on those spine wax. Here's a size reference with the Ontario Rat 1 and 2. Pretty similar in overall length with the QSP Swordfish, and it's a hair longer than the Kaiser Brat. And lastly, it's a little shorter than the Concept Nest Street, and it's a little longer than the Concept Main Street. All right, now for my nitpicks and complaints. We discussed the sharpening choil. I wish they would have given us a proper sharpening choil. Bring the plunge grind all the way to the back right here so you don't start flaring out right away, or cut a deeper choil into the blade. That way it's easier to maintain the edge without this getting super thick on you, flaring out, or possibly even ruining your stones. Depending on what type of stones you're using, hitting that plunge grind, could possibly destroy them. Also, even though this clip has been comfortable for the most part, including the Ripley, and I'll tell you the reason why this one was nice and comfortable, because as you see, it's sitting in the middle of the scales. These scales are wider. Well, this scale gets narrower in the back, and as you can see, it's sitting close to the bottom right there. So whenever I would do a normal cutting, perfectly fine, no problem. It was actually pretty darn comfortable. When I started giving anything a good bit of pressure and a hammer grip, that ramp right there is stabbing me, and it gets pretty uncomfortable. So, just going to depend on your hand size, where your hand lands, and how hard you use your knives. Now, I was able to get through all that testing without stopping and putting on a glove, but, I wouldn't have wanted to do it for much longer. And lastly, this is really a minor thing, because now that I'm aware of how to deploy the knife, it's not really an issue. But, the detent felt super, super strong, but it was because I was just trying to flip it out like a normal knife, just flicking it straight. Well, this one, if you just flick it to the left some, almost like you're pushing out like that, it goes out very, very easily and comes out with a nice pop to it. Lastly, this one is definitely, in my opinion, pretty overpriced. This particular variation comes in at $88. Now, it's a good performer. It's got great action. Depending on if you like this drop point Tonto, I don't mind it. If I'm going to have a Tonto, it's going to be that drop point. And depending on, if this doesn't cause you a hot spot and anything I talked about, this one is a liner lock. It has nice and tight lockup to it. But for me, $88 is pretty steep. And I know they charge that extra money over, say, the Ripley because of this different, Damascus G10. I've heard it called Brains, Maze G10, whatever you want to call it. I know it's a little bit more expensive than just plain color G10. But I don't know about y'all. I would have rather just plain color G10. You could put that little turtle texture on it all you want, and I would have been fine to get the price down to at least the 75 this one's at. So, love to hear y'all thoughts on that. And, the sharpening choil would have been a no-go right away for me. That's just me. But if none of those things I talked about are deal breakers for you, then yeah, it's a great knife. It performed good. It's got nice, smooth, nice and snappy action. You're going to have to decide if this is an aesthetically pleasing knife to you. But it's a solid knife. There's nothing wrong with it as far as functionality. But some of those things are just a little much for me. QSP, they make a really good knife. But if you're going to charge this kind of money, you got to get all these little things right. Sharpening choil, the hot spot this creates whenever you're really bearing down on the knife. I don't know. There's way too much competition right now in the market to, outprice some of your competition and not be able to be on that level as far as, the little things, little details. So let's have a discussion. Let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Let me know what you think about the Turtle Punk. If you do want to get one of these, I will have it linked down in the description. It'll more than likely be an affiliate link, so if you want to help support what I do here on this channel, that is pretty much the only way to do so. If not, no biggie. All right, guys and girls, I hope every one of y'all is having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.